Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I am your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today will be a little bit of a different show. Recently, I was interviewed by Nick Capozzi. Nick is a sales pitch consultant. He spent lots of years working in broadcast and media, working on cruise ships, doing private consulting with respect to helping companies pitch their products. He recently sat down with me and had a series of questions that he wanted to ask me about networking. They were produced into videos that Nick's company produced. And as a part of that, I got the audio files and I figured it would be great to share them here on the podcast. So sit back and listen to me answer some questions from Nick Capozzi.
Today, we're going to talk to Frank Agan, the founder of AmSpirit, thought leader in the networking space, and we're going to discuss 3 techniques for endless referrals. Hi, today I am talking to Frank Agan, the founder of AmSpirit. Frank, thanks for chatting with me today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. This is great.
Absolutely. So today we're going to talk about 3 things you need to know for endless referrals. So Frank, let me start off. I'm no dummy, at least I hope I'm not. I've been in business for years. Hands down, referrals are the best form of business, cheaper than advertising, less draining than cold calling, but as much as I'd prefer them, referrals are not easy to come by. Through AmSpirit Business Connections, you help small businesses with different types of referrals. What secrets can you give me right off the bat?
Well, you know what? There are no secrets. And that's what I try to stress to people. A lot of it is common sense. It's not common practice, but it's common sense.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, what I tell people is that there are 3 reasons, and 3 reasons only, why you're not getting referrals. And people who embrace these 3 reasons are flush with referrals, and people who kind of ignore them, they struggle. I'm not saying they're not getting referrals, but it's not as fruitful.
Okay. So you're saying 3 reasons. What are they?
Okay. 3 reasons. 3 reasons why you don't get referrals. 1 is lack of relationship. 2 is lack of creating what I call recognition. And the 3rd is lack of empowering somebody to engage a conversation.
Okay, let me see if I caught all of those. So lack of relationship, recognition, and engagement. Did I get that right?
Kind of, sort of. We're probably best to take them one at a time. We'll take them
Okay.
one at a time if we can. So first one, lack of relationship. And really what that boils down to is that people lack know, like, and trust. And that's the building block of any relationship, any referral opportunity. So let's pick those 3 things apart in the first segment. Lack of know. There are people who roll in and they've just met you and they'll say, hey, Nick, this is great. Send me everybody you know who needs a financial advisor. Well, you just met the person. You don't know them. They can't expect it, but people do. And so when I work with people about referrals, I'm like, these people don't know you well enough. So that's the first thing. The second thing is not only do they need to know you, but they need to like you. And we do business with people we know and we like and we trust. And so the like piece of it, what I always ask people is this: how would you behave if $1 million was hanging in the balance? If this one interaction, it was worth $1 million, what would you do? You'd dress up, you'd look the part, you'd do all those things, and you would say the right things. You wouldn't talk politics, you wouldn't talk religion, you wouldn't bash their favorite football team.
Okay.
And so what I tell people is $1 million is always hanging in the balance. Maybe not here in this moment, but the referrals you might give me down the line, it's all hanging in the balance. So we need to behave appropriately. I'm not saying you can't talk politics. I'm not saying you can't talk religion. I'm not saying you can't bash somebody's football fandom. But if you're going to do it, then you'll suffer the consequences. So that's the second thing, the like. And then the third thing is trust, is that people need to trust you. And so, just it stands to reason you need to do the things that demonstrates your honesty, your trustworthiness, your reliability, being on time, doing the things you say you're going to do. And so a lot of times people won't get referrals because of one of those things. And so it's a lack of relationship. It's that simple.
Okay, simple enough. So make sure that you get people to know you, like you, and trust you, and then that just sets this referral machine in motion, right?
Well, not really, because it's entirely possible to be known, liked, and trusted and not get referrals. Let me give you an example. Years ago, when I first got into networking, there was a woman that I met. Her name is Gina. And Gina and I still are friends. But Gina is somebody, and certainly was somebody, but still is somebody that I came to know, like, and trust almost immediately. She smiled, she giggled, she was outgoing, she shared about herself, she was always curious about other people. She did everything she said she was going to do. I never had to wonder if she said she was going to meet me for lunch, if she was going to be there. I knew she was going to be there. She was going to follow up. So I knew her, I liked her, I trusted her. We had a relationship. She had that in place. I didn't give her a referral for almost 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Why? Because she didn't do a great job of helping me recognize opportunities for her. And we were in this networking group together, which is now AmSpirit. We met every Thursday morning. She was a telecommunications consultant, and she talked about T1s, fiber optics, sonnet rings, things that I didn't necessarily understand. Well, I didn't understand. And shame on her for using that jargon, but shame on me for not asking about what those things meant. Right. So at any rate, at one point, I was moving out of my home office into what I call a big boy office. And I showed up and plugged the phone in the wall. This is all pre-cell phone. Plugged the phone in the wall and nothing. And I just assume you got dial tone like turning on a sink, right? You go anywhere, you turn on the faucet, it works. You don't have to order up water. Well, apparently with telecommunications, well, I didn't know then, I know now, you got to get it all set up. So I'm standing there, got this new office and phones that don't work. I literally had to get in the car and drive home and call her and say, Gina, is this something you can help me with? And she said, yes. And through the course of that interaction, she really got me to start recognizing opportunities for her. So I was able to see, she would educate me. If you see this, think of me. If someone says this, think of me. It might be a good referral. And so as I interacted with my clients, my vendors, I was on the lookout for things that could help her. So it's not just getting people to know, like, and trust us. It's also educating them, creating in their minds this vision of what a good opportunity looks like for us.
Okay, so that's really good tips in there, but can you give the viewers guidelines for how to create this recognition themselves?
Yeah, I mean, it's, there are certain things you need to do. One, you need to avoid jargon. And we all have jargon in our industries. I always joke about, I joke with every industry, attorneys, everybody, but like realtors. We all know what realtors do. And when they go to their offices and they go about their day, they talk English, but they speak a realtor dialect. Right. They've got acronyms. They've got all these things that are short circuit, longer meaning things that the rest of us don't understand, much like Gina. I don't know what a sonnet ring is. That's not my job. That's her job. So we want to try and avoid jargon and kind of dumb it down a little bit. So put it in a fifth grade language. This is what this means. The second thing you want to do is you want to avoid generalities. And a lot of people are prone to, anybody, somebody, anyone. And when you say anybody, somebody, or someone, anybody needing car insurance is a good referral for me. Anybody equals nobody. Because our brains, the way our brains work is when they get that anybody or somebody, it doesn't know how to work the mental Rolodex, right? And so it ends up coming up with nothing. So you want to avoid things like that. The other thing I advise people is don't tell me what you do. Tell me when you do it. So
What do you mean?
Pick on property. Well, pick on property casualty people. I'll use that as an example. Property casualty person might say, a good referral for me is somebody who needs property casualty insurance. I'm a property casualty person. Okay, that begs the question. But if a property, that's the what. That's what they do. They sell insurance. The when is much more powerful. So if the property casualty person says, if you come across somebody who's got teen drivers, that's a win. That's when I can help. Think of me. If you hear somebody talking about their teen driver, think of me. When you see Facebook, somebody talking about their teen driver, just getting their license, that's a win.
You want to really distill down your messaging.
Yeah, you want them to, you kind of want to paint a picture in their mind as to what you're looking for. Again, the way our brains work is looking for things to kind of latch onto, and that helps them latch onto it. And there's lots of little tricks with respect to this. But the fourth thing I would say is you want to use stories, analogies, or examples. Because those are much more powerful. And I'll use the property casualty person as an example again. If the property casualty person says, "Hey, you know what? I help people with teens, save money on their car insurance." That's nice. That's a statement. But if that person comes in and says, the other day I happened to have somebody come into my office, and through our conversation, it turned out that they had teen drivers, and we had a long conversation about it. Found out that their teen drivers have great grades in school, and there's a special program through one of my carriers, and we were able to save them all sorts of money. Well, that story sticks in somebody's brain much better than somebody who just makes just a quick statement. So stories, analogies, examples.
It makes a lot of sense. It's great. Before I get to my next question, though, Frank, obviously, if you're watching this right now, you want to find your local chapter of AmSpirit, which you can do on AmSpirit.com. But Frank, if I really wanted to take my relationship building and networking to the next level, what should I do?
Well, that's a great question. The whole purpose of this is just to state being networked is vital to success. And if you're a professional or a business owner, referrals are the best way to go to generate revenues. Either you're doing it or your people are doing it, somebody's doing it. And the best way to do that is to get those referrals. And there's a number of ways of getting referrals. Certainly you can go to a chamber, or you can join a networking group like AmSpirit. But what I always ask people is this, and it's somewhat rhetorical, but if you had a choice, would you rather be the renter or the landlord?
Well, that's an easy one, Frank.
Yeah.
I want to own the building.
Yeah, you want to collect the rents, and so I always ask people with that, if you want to own the building, if you're of that ilk, why do you just want to join a networking group? Why do you just want to pay to be in a networking organization? Wouldn't you rather be paid operating a networking organization? And so at AmSpirit, we're in the process of our national expansion. We're looking for people around the country who want to operate a networking organization. So if that sounds of interest to you, and for most people it is, most people want to have a conversation around that. If that sounds of interest, reach out to me. You can go to the website, amspirit.com, or Frank Agin, FrankAgin, and it's all on the front page of the website. But through this opportunity, you'll make more money from professional connections, and then you'll also make money building those professional connections.
It makes so much sense. It's so logical, Frank. All right, I got a few more questions for you. So we build relationships with our referral partners. Then we help them understand how to recognize, listen for, and look for opportunities. What's next? Because it seems like they're all set at this point.
It does, and there are people who do a great job of getting through those first steps. Getting known, liked, and trusted, if you're a decent person, that's going to happen in time. Creating recognition happens in time. But you have to remember this recognition piece is all happening up in our heads. It's in our minds where it's happening. Meaning, if you teach me how to recognize an opportunity for you, when I see it, it's in my mind. You don't know what to do with it, right? You have no idea it's there. So the third piece, and the third reason why people don't necessarily get referrals, is that they haven't empowered the person giving them referrals, the referral partner, with conversation that they can use.
Right.
But let me give you a story to illustrate.
I like stories, Frank.
Okay, good. Yeah, people remember stories. Years ago when I was networking, there was a guy that was in one of my groups, and he was a psychologist type. He was a business psychologist. He worked with people kind of getting beyond things where they were stuck. And so, great guy. I knew him, liked him, and trust him. Check, right? We had a relationship. He did a really good job through stories of explaining when I could recognize something, when we could all recognize something. If you see this, think of me. If you hear of this, think of me. In fact, he did such a great job that there was a point where I had a client. I used to practice law. I had a client where I recognized it. I had this client. She had an armed security guard business. It was her business. And she had hired me to help her with lots of things. I was a business attorney, help her grow this. And we were working on things. And I kept noticing that we'd work on things, trying to get a bigger office space, trying to get more vehicles, trying to do this. And they would inexplicably just fall apart at the last minute for whatever reason. It was the oddest thing. It's like we've spent all this time and my bills are getting paid. So it's not a terrible thing, but my client's not getting what she wants. Right. Well, then I come to discover that her ex-husband is still in the business. She owns the business, but he's still in the business, marching around. He's in the office. It's an armed security guard business. So he's wearing a gun. I don't know if it's loaded or not, but he's very intimidating. Now, at that point, I knew that she probably was carrying some baggage with respect to the relationship. I didn't know the ins and outs of it, but I recognized, hey, this is definitely something that Jerry can help tackle. I didn't know how to bring it up with my client. And that's a hard thing because you obviously saying nothing's not going to fix anything. Saying the wrong thing would hurt my relationship and might hurt my client's feeling. And so I had to go to Jerry and say, Jerry, here's the situation. He kind of coached me through what it is I need to say. So I had the relationship with him. I recognized it. He helped me have that conversation where I could sit down with my client and say, I think this would help you. It was much more involved than that, but I think this would help you. And then that closed the gap. 6 months later, her ex-husband is also an ex-employee, and life moved on with her business in a big way.
Got it. So I see that, but most situations are not as sticky as with your client and introducing her to Jerry. So is this step really necessary in all situations?
Well, I can't say it's necessary in all situations, but it's necessary in enough situations that you probably want to get in the habit of coaching the people around you, not just having a relationship with them, not just recognizing things, but empowering them with things that they can have a conversation. Let's go back to what I was talking about with the insurance agent. So you have this, the insurance agent is saying, listen, if you know somebody who's got teen drivers, that could be a great referral for me. We've got these programs. So I'm sitting at home and then somebody's moving in next door. And lo and behold, they've got twin 16-year-old drivers. Right away, I'm thinking about that property casualty person. I'm recognizing there's an opportunity. Now, I don't go rolling over there with a plate of muffins saying, hey, welcome to the neighborhood. By the way, my insurance agent's going to call you. That's just too abrupt. It's way too abrupt. You're not going to do that. But what you might want to do is something subtle. And so what the insurance agent might coach me to do is say, you know what, just ask this question, in a playful way.
Right.
Wow, twin teens. What has that done to your insurance? And I might not even know the person very well, but I know what the answer to that question is. And nowhere on this earth does having teen drivers lower somebody's insurance rates. It just doesn't. So they're going to roll their eyes, they're going to scoff, they're going to whatever. And I could say, yeah, I know it's crazy. I had coffee the other day with an insurance agent I know. He was telling me that there's some programs out there you can take advantage of and lower your insurance with teen drivers. You ought to talk to your agent, or if you'd like, I could have my guy call you. Now, I don't know where that's going to go, but I've dramatically increased the odds that I'm going to have a referral for this property casualty person, all because he's got to me to know him, like him, and trust him, told me where to recognize things, and then educated me or empowered me with some language as to how I could bring him up in the conversation.
Fantastic. Frank, this was great. I've learned so much. I know the viewers have learned so much as well. If you're watching right now, definitely go to AmSpirit.com, find your local chapter, and get involved. Get out there, shake hands, get to know people in your community. And if you want to own the building, like Frank talked about earlier, reach out to Frank directly. He is looking right now, the whole organization is looking for people to help grow right across the country. Check them out at AmSpirit.com. Frank, thanks so much for your time today. Very helpful, learned a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.